Hi, this is Dave Sheen from The Connect Show. I'm very excited. In our next episode, I've got Eddy and also Shakti, Andrea Smith, who will be talking all things somatic. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Kia ora, I'm Florence.
Kia ora, I'm Bernie, and we're the co-chairs of Massage New Zealand.
We are very excited to be returning to an in-person conference in 2023.
We will be partnering with Massage and Myotherapy Australia and giving our Aussie friends a big New Zealand no mai haere mai welcome.
The 2023 host city is Auckland, and the conference will be held on the 27th and 28th of May.
For more information, visit massagemyotherapy.com.au. And from all of us Kiwis,
where the bloody hell are ya?
Hi everybody, welcome to this episode of The Connect Show. I've got Dr. Eddy and also Shakti, Andrea Smith with me today. This is a dynamic duo that we're going to be having a quick chat and unpacking their latest book, talking about dynamic embodiment of the sun salutation. Is that right? I say that right?
You got
Yay. It. Okay. Now, as per usual with the Connect Show, I normally let the guests do their own little intros. So who's first?
Go for it, Shakti.
Oh,
Shakti.
Okay, I'll start. I've been inhabiting the world of the body since a young adult. I actually first practiced yoga when I was 4 years old. I grew up in Vermont, in northern New England, near Canada. And I've been inhabiting that world ever since. Fast forward to my late teens and 20s, I discovered dance and movement, and embodiment has since then been the center of my career. I've been a body worker. I've been a teacher on the college level of body work and energy work and polarity therapy. And we fast forward to now, I'm a movement therapist and educator, energy worker, and I am in graduate school for psychotherapy, bringing it all together, bringing the mind and the body together. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I think we'll talk a little bit about some of the courses that you do in New York City at the end of our little interview. So Martha, what about yourself?
Sounds great.
Great. And another thing I really enjoy about Shakti's work, when we get to know each other after being in Massachusetts together, was her work teaching in massage schools and really in-depth curricula that she developed too. So maybe you'll get to talk about that.
Thank you, Martha.
I also have a similar background, although I didn't start till I was 8, and it was through dance that I got into movement. I didn't get exposed to yoga until I was about, I think 18. And I had the great privilege of being introduced to yoga by one of my teachers who I was studying with kind of on weekends and in the summer, who happened to be near where I was going to college. And her name is Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen. And she took me to a Hatha yoga class with Jeannie Earlbaum. And I learned the sun salutation, and I've sort of been doing it ever since. Not every day, but a lot. So that's what is so important to me around this particular interview. Is just that I was enamored with having a ritual that I could return to kind of get to know my own embodiment and check in. Since then, I've done a lot, I would say, of cross-comparative understanding of what this whole world of movement and conscious movement has been, and helped to absorb the name somatic movement, soma being the living body, and help to advocate for that. So the very training that is now called dynamic embodiment was actually originally named the somatic movement therapy training, because no one else was using that term at the time.
Well, it's probably a good segue, Martha, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask was what actually is dynamic embodiment, and it's mentioned in the journal article in our association's journal. But could you unpack that term a little bit for people at home?
Sure. So there I was, having developed the somatic movement therapy training, and all of a sudden people started using the term somatic movement therapy. And eventually our professional association, which had been just the International Movement Therapy Association, also took on this descriptor of being somatic movement therapy. And so at that point I had to distinguish what it was. And I drew two words from two of the root systems of the, I will say, merger that I put together. I call it an amalgam, which one was the body-mind centering that I learned with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, this woman who took me to my first yoga class. And the other is a system called the Laban-Bartenieff movement system. And that one is really about movement observation and movement description. So it's an internalized framework for both learning movement and describing movement. And so I found the two really went well together. The work in body-mind centering was embodying different tissues of the body. Like, how do I move from my organs? How do I breathe into my glands? How do I feel my bones? And what do my bones kind of give to my consciousness that's different from my nervous system, for instance? And how does the energy show up? So that was the embodiment. And then the dynamic has to do with the Laban system, which says, almost everything works in polarities that are along a continuum. I can be strong and I can be light, and I can kind of modulate between them.
Okay. And within that, there's discussion in the article about the relationship with glands and specific areas of the body. So is that regionalized movement within an area that relates back? Similarly, in sort of this, that you talked about the chakra system, but also, you know, like the meridian system, where you've got different points in the body that do relate back to in a lot of cases, organs. So is there some sort of similarity in that whole sort of scheme of things, the way the body is mapped through?
I'm going to pass it to Shakti. Happy to answer it too, but I'd love you to go.
Sure. First thing that comes to mind for me is that these are all systems. And so we're telescoping out and we're looking at the body holistically, and we're looking at systems. We're looking at the nervous system, which is throughout the whole body. We're looking at the endocrine system, which works best in unison as a unit throughout the whole body. And the chakras, same thing. And I'm just going to back up a little bit, because the original impetus for the book was Martha and I coming together with our mutual love of yoga and the sun salutation, it being something both of us have practiced over the decades, seeing how popular it has become in the whole world, and how do we apply these other systems that are so much a part of our lives, our healing, our awareness, our teaching, our programs, to this simple ritual that can be done every day, the sun salutation. How do I practice the sun salutation and understand more about the nervous system, and how does it apply to me and my personal needs? And the same with the endocrine glands, same with developmental movement and body-mind centering, the same with the chakras. And I think I come in with some of the chakra expertise, being a trained yoga teacher and I think we've both spent quite a bit of time in esoteric realms, but that's part of what I'm bringing into the book is chakra, color, light, and sound, giving weight to these aspects that often aren't given weight in the West, but are intrinsic to our healing.
All right, and very relatable for manual therapists, because, well, apart from the fact that we work very hard and we do need to identify when there's too much stress in our own bodies, particularly post-COVID as well, adding that layer into the whole thing. What else can a therapist get from reading your book? Because there's that self-care element.
I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to invite Martha to just sort of start speaking over me whenever you feel the energy, and let's surf a little bit here together. Because what this book is a tremendous resource for self-care, for knowledge. There's 10 chapters with beautiful drawings at the beginning of each that are meant to help entice you, draw you in to texture, to sensation, to feeling your own body. Throughout the chapters, there are boxes with examples of self-care for you to try out, with specifics for adrenal fatigue that a body worker might be experiencing working with many clients in a day. There are personal stories, and there's our personal stories. There are guided anatomy experiences that speak to all gender identities. It's full of photographs and charts to help draw you in, to enhance your understanding, help you be engaged in learning more about your body. And I'll pass it over to Martha.
So I want to say, for instance, I learned a lot in this journey with Shakti. And so for me, for instance, in our approach to the endocrine system, in body mind centering, so that embodiment work that I was talking about, we work a lot with sounding, and that we actually think in dynamic embodiment, which of course is an outgrowth of what I mentioned before, body mind centering and the Laban Bartenieff work, with sound as a type of movement, but really it's a type of vibration. And so what Shakti brought in by really understanding the chakras, again, is what she talked about already, that color is a consequence of vibration, that through light, and that sound is more through the airwaves, of course, also conducted through our bones. And so that also is deep self-care work. So we have movement, but sometimes at the end of the day, if you've been standing and moving a person, you might want to do your own movement. We're definitely advocates of that, but you also might want to just see color. You might want to just listen to sound. And I think what we're getting at here is that these are different inroads to the same kind of energy fields. And so I'll get a little more specific, just relating to what Shakti was saying, which is that we, by definition, again, from the root of body mind centering into dynamic embodiment, see this idea that the chakras may be, we don't know for sure, the conjunction of a nerve plexus with a group of glands. So there are 14 glands that we work with. Not all of them have been identified by science. Some are still called bodies. But one of the things we talk about in the book, and Shakti was always the one to say, this is exciting, we need to remember to say this, is that in our lifetimes, we have seen what were called bodies, like pineal bodies, have a hormone identified, and the shift in nomenclature and name has shifted from a body to a gland, because now we know what hormone it secretes. So through the energetic sensation, again, guided in large part by Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, but who also was influenced by both yoga and esoteric healing from Alice Bailey, as well as her studies in Japan. You talked about meridians. And so from all of that, she would feel, for instance, and we tell this story, that just about here at a little lower at the xiphoid process, she felt a similar kind of chakral energy that would relate to that solar plexus chakra, but there's no known gland there. As a matter of fact, there's no known body there, but she has named the thoracobodies as something for us to see if we feel and discover. Another example, and I'll end here, is that the coccygeal bodies, similarly, the root chakra, the little bodies, little pea-like structures in the front of the coccyx, are known to exist. They're seen anatomically, but nobody knows what their function is. And yet we feel their energy.
Very interesting.
And
So, Sorry, yeah,
Oh,
carry
sorry.
on. Yeah, Shakti.
Oh, just to add one little bit on that is that in this exploration that Bonnie has led, there was a moment in time where it wasn't known that there was endocrine function within the heart. But Bonnie and her students experienced what felt to them to be endocrine energy within the heart. And they all got to witness, and we write about this in the book, over their lifetime, science beginning to see that this is also so, and seeing studies and research being published to corroborate what they had known within their bodies. So part of the book is about, yes, science is important. Yes, research is important, and trust what you know and what you understand to be true.
It's kind of interesting. I'm getting flashbacks back in 1989. I was out your way. I was doing summer camp, and I remember picking up a book back then because I was very curious. It was called Vibrational Medicine by Dr. Richard Gerber.
Oh, yes,
and,
yes.
Yeah, and now I think he was from New York. He got disbarred by the American Medical Association for publishing this book, but Vibrational Medicine it was called, and it was a fascinating read. About vibration and about a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. It's quite relatable back. I've still got the copy downstairs in my bookshelf, so I have to go and pick that back up again and have a read over the weekend. But there's
very nice.
Yeah.
There were many copies of that book in the library at the Swedish Institute College of Health Sciences in Manhattan, the massage school where I taught.
And one of the things that I liked about it, because I've come myself from a sort of a science background, that I like to see stuff validated where possible, but certainly respect the other side of interpretation, right? So this book was it really had a profound effect on me back when I was back in '89. So I was in my early 20s. I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. So your book. Is there anything else you want to talk about that? Because we're going to have to wind up in a minute. But other aspects of the book that you want to let the folks at home know about what's actually in the book itself? Because apart from the beautiful illustrations you mentioned and photos.
I'd love to jump in with just relating to your field and just how the work actually does get into fascial tensions somewhat. And that from the Lavan perspective, we're looking at these crystalline forms called the sacred forms as they exist in both our bodies in stillness, but also in how we move. We use a term called counter tensions. So if you have a counter tension, two pulls, you have a kind of suspensional support versus a more columnar bony support. So it really brings you into biotensegrity. So we talk about biotensegrity in particular with looking at where are we compressing and where are we suspending?
Nice.
Where are we lengthening and where are we shortening?
Sure, fantastic.
So we're giving you experiential ways to explore some of these concepts that we explore as movers, as yogis, as body workers. And we are drawing on research that's known. And we're also speaking to that which hasn't been proven yet, that many of us are exploring in these fields with as much resource as we were aware of, because we're drawing on 40 years of a combined 70 years between Martha and I of teachers that we've been exposed to, we've learned from, and we bring them into the book, we quote them, we interview some of them. I can also say that because of Martha's connection with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, some of the information in this book is information from Bonnie that's being published.
That's true. Like she literally was helping unpack some of her own work in the interviews I would do and checking out different either histories around the development.
For the first time. I find that so exciting.
Yeah. Sorry.
And then the last thing I'm wanting to...
We just had a little bit of a... Sorry. We had a little bit of a moment with your internet there, I think. And Martha stepped in and I think filled in a bit of the gap there, yeah?
Because, good.
Yeah.
Is there a part that I should repeat? Or
Martha,
are we good?
Do you think you covered everything there or not?
I'm not sure. I think you were about to say something else, Shakti, that, you might want to
just that it might be a nice way to wrap up. David mentioned COVID, and we've been writing this book for some years, but we wrote the bulk of it during COVID. And you've heard me coughing during this call because I just got COVID for the first time and I'm in my recovery. And so we speak to that throughout the book. And in chapter 10, we speak to COVID, to the ways in which that helped bring some unification into the world, awareness of nature, and how to apply these teachings to helping you feel more connected with nature and using nature as a resource for healing and well-being.
So very relative to our times at the moment. So it's nice that it's such a new, fresh piece. What about courses? So both of you run your own courses. Shakti, what's happening in your world over in New York?
Sure. People can find me at premasoma.com. Prem means love, soma, Latin for the body. That's my practice, where I offer private sessions and small workshops. And coming up in New York, I'm offering an 8-week course in authentic movement in Chelsea, Manhattan, which is an incredible practice pathway for coming into the body and upping your somatic awareness.
Fantastic. Martha?
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Mostly, I run 3 certifications, and 2 of them kind of feed into becoming a dynamic embodiment practitioner, which Shakti and I met when she was studying that work. So she's a somatic movement therapist through this lineage of dynamic embodiment. So what I like is that some people are not quite ready. They haven't done the 200 to 300 hours of other somatic work to begin dynamic embodiment, because it is kind of an advanced training. So many who love movement will start with either a kind of somatic fitness that I created specifically originally for women with breast cancer, but has been kind of adapted to being for any senior person that is dealing with a chronic illness or just needs help getting moving. That's called Moving for Life. And we offer that for free online. So if anybody wants to check it out, just go to movingforlife.org. And then I've been dancing. I was a teenager when I started somatic work. So I would process what I was learning by making dance phrases. And those dance phrases became something called body-mind dancing as an outgrowth of body-mind centering. And that is also a certification program. So people can take the classes. The first class is free, or they can actually come and train to be those teachers. And anybody who starts with Moving for Life or Body Mind Dancing is on a really nice path to become a dynamic embodiment, somatic movement educator or therapist. So,
wow. Sounds really interesting. Well, for both of you, it would be lovely to have you out in Australia teaching at some stage in the future, because in our industry in Australia, there's a lot of emphasis put on fixing the body, if you like, from a physical perspective. And I guess in some ways it's we need to look beyond that sort of single dimension and look, outside of that and look more holistically at ways in which we can look after ourselves as well, not just treating other people as we do as practitioners. So I'm sure there'd be a lot of interest if you came out to Australia and you're able to teach your courses out here directly. I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for coming along today and having a chat with me on our Connect show. And for everyone at home, that book, once again, talking about dynamic embodiment of the sun salutation. Check it out. I hopefully will have up on the screen where you can purchase it down here, down under. It might be a Terra Rose, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll check that out. But very much worthwhile having a look at purchasing that, and good Christmas read maybe out on the beach, as we do here in Australia. Where it's sunny and warm at Christmas.
Woo! Yes, we want to come to you in the winter.
That's it. Yes. That's it. All right. Once again, thank you so much, Shakti and Martha, for your time. It's been really lovely talking to you both. Merry Christmas. Wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll get to see you out here sometime. And if we'll look out for more articles, maybe in our journal as well, because I know that there was such positive feedback that we really wanted to get you on the show to sort of unpack it a little bit more. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Really
Thank
great.
you. So nice to hear and great to meet you and talk fascia a little bit.
Great. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks.